Hey goal-getters, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's episode is a continuation of last week's episode. We're going to be talking about 5 ways that you can make sure you are responding to situations logically instead of emotionally. So if you haven't watched last week's episode, be sure to check it out. It's a good one. But we talked about what happens whenever you respond to a situation emotionally. And as we saw in last week's episode, sometimes responding emotionally has some risks to it and maybe has some unwanted results, let's say that. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about ways that you can make sure that you are responding well and thoughtfully instead of overreacting emotionally. So let's take a look at a situation where I could have either responded emotionally or I could have responded logically. In this situation, a coworker of mine was upset with me for something that wasn't my fault. She was yelling at me, she was pointing her finger at me, and saying some pretty aggravating things. So 2 ways that I could have reacted. Reaction 1, I got angry. I yelled back at her. We were getting into a fight. It was causing a scene. Our coworkers were watching. Things were getting pretty ugly. Lots of tension was created in the office in the future. And then eventually I ended up going to her and apologizing to try to smooth things over, but things were never better. So that's reaction 1, reacting emotionally. The next reaction, I could have sat there and just let her yell at me and just kind of acted as if we were having a stimulating discussion, and then eventually said to her, what can we do in the future to make sure this doesn't happen again? And then she would have been kind of shocked that I didn't react the way she'd expected, and then eventually muttered an apology, walked away, things got better. So I'm proud to say that I chose the calm one because that could have been really bad if I'd not chosen it. But reacting to stressful situations is something that I've been practicing. I realized long ago that my natural instinct is to react emotionally to things, and that's not always healthy. It doesn't always turn out okay. So what I want to do is I want to share with you what I've done to try to make sure that I react logically to situations. These are things that have helped me. I'm hoping that they can help you too. The first thing that I started doing is I started telling myself that I had the power to change the situation. One thing that I used to say all the time was, I can't help how I feel, or I can't help that I'm angry, which is absolutely not true. We have the power to change how we feel in situations, whether or not we like that. We especially have the power to stop ourselves from feeling angry, from feeling jealous, anything really negative. We can change how we think in that situation. So that was the first thing I did. The second thing that I did, pausing before reacting. I started noticing precursors to emotional outbursts. I kind of got tunnel vision. I couldn't think of anything else. My palms were sweating, blood was rushing to my face. I started noticing that these were things that would happen before I was reacting emotionally. When I noticed that, when I started being more mindful of that, I was able to predict emotional reactions to things. And once I was able to predict being emotional in situations, I was able to pause and take a deep, calming breath. If you've ever heard of breathing with your diaphragm, that's something that you learn when you're singing. And if you take a couple of breaths, deep, cleansing, calming breaths, what you're actually doing is you are allowing cold air, cool air to filter through your brain and calm your brain down whenever it's overheating a little bit. I don't know if that's actually scientific or not now that I say it, but it's something that I heard and it's something I like to think of. So taking a deep, calming breath allows you to just pause before reacting, and it allows you to think, is what I want to say actually a good thing to say right now? Number 3. The next thing that I tried to implement to start thinking logically in stressful situations was thinking about how I want to look back on this moment 10 minutes in the future. So a lot of times, whenever I would react emotionally to things, 10 minutes after that, I'd be regretting what I said. I'd be regretting what I did. While I'm taking that pause, while I'm taking that calming breath, I would just stop and think, how will future Kelsey want to remember this moment? And that allows me to have some insight, have some thought about what should I be saying right now instead of what I want to say. And the last thing was just being more mindful in general. Number 4, mindfulness is key. This kind of touches on a lot of what we've already talked about. Having general awareness of your body, of what you do, of what tends to trigger you to act emotionally, just being mindful of the whole situation really helps you take control to make sure that you're acting in ways that you're going to be proud of in the future. Number 5, the final thing that I did when I decided that I wanted to start acting logically instead of emotionally in the face of stressful situations is probably the most important. I know this might be a little bit off-brand for GoalGetter, but it's honestly none of the other stuff would have happened if I hadn't done this in the first place. So that thing is prayer. I knew that this was something that I couldn't tackle on my own. Changing who I was in the face of stressful situations is not something that comes naturally. Really, it doesn't come naturally to anyone, and it especially didn't come naturally to me. So I made a point to pray for wisdom. It's a habit that I started picking up because ultimately my purpose on this earth is to make sure that I'm glorifying God in all things that I do, and everything that I do flows through that. So I knew that if I was praying for wisdom, then that would align with God's will that I glorify Him. None of this is anything that originates with me. It fully originates with God flowing through me, but it's something that made a huge impact in how I react in stressful situations. Ultimately, the best way to make sure that you're reacting logically instead of emotionally in the face of stressful situations is by practicing. Take any of these tips and start practicing them. It's not easy, doesn't happen overnight, but the more you allow yourself to practice these steps, the better you'll be. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you liked it. Be sure to subscribe, thumbs up, and check the little bell next to the subscribe button. That'll make sure that you get all of the notifications in the future every time I post. Post new videos every Thursday, so be sure to check back on my channel. Also, if you're interested, check out www.beagoalgetter.net. That's my website. I'm on Facebook at GoalGetters Unite and Instagram at GoalGetter Insta. I post there all the time, so be sure to check those out too to get lots of life updates and fun things. Until next week, thanks for watching.